Some movement inside. Crimson Advocate, a little feisty. And they're off. Committee of one is very quick, so is Slider. And down at the rail, here's Crimson Advocate. Tiger Bell is up and on the pace, as is Big Evs. No Name Metz is off the pace today, 4 lengths off the lead, followed by Chazz. And outside of Chazz now, Committee of one who broke well is suddenly 7 off the pace. Starlust moving through inside amidst waves. They are followed by Valiant Force on the outside of Cherry Blossom, and ASEAN is at the back of the field around the far turn, and it's Crimson Advocate just in front, about a half length to Big Evs, pressing in second, 3 to Tiger Bell third. No Name Metz is on the inside of Slider, and they're followed by Starlust and Chazz coming toward the 8th pole, and Big Evs on the outside looming menacingly. Starlust is starting to close strong ground. Crimson Advocate along the inside. Cherry Blossom has surfaced later on the far outside. Valiant Force is flying at Big Evs. Big Evs, Valiant Force. Big Evs has won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint over an oncoming Valiant Force. And then for the minor awards, Starlust was in that battle along with No Name Metz and Chazz.
Ireland is on the board first. The Irish-bred Big Evs, having raced over in England, comes to the United States and takes the first Breeders' Cup Championship race of this 2023 edition. And early on, Rishi, you knew big things were going to happen because Big Evs broke with the early pace.
He broke with the early pace, and although he probably had to use a little bit of juice and petrol to hold that spot, he then settled into a great rhythm. I don't think he actually cornered perfectly, but he cornered well enough, and he was in a good position. Terrific textbook ride by Tom Marquand. Look at the effort from Valiant Force down on the outside under William Buick, who of course won the race last year with Mischief at Magic, and Starlust, a 1-2-3 for the Raiders.
Big Evs was under a hold, if that's hard to believe, going around the turn. You go 5 furlongs, 20 and change, and this horse is under a hold.
Well, we've got the jockey camera aboard, and so we can see a little bit closer what you're talking about, Simon.
Yeah, I think he cornered not too bad. He just had so much horse. He had a good hold of him, Tom Marquand, and that's very rare that you see that. This horse has got a ton of talent. He's very, very fast because Crimson Advocate is a very fast horse in her own right. And Valiant Force, 23 to 1 underneath.
Rishi, earlier in the week for our American audience on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, you interviewed young Tom Marquand. What more can you tell us about him?
He is one of the nicest guys.
I got that impression, yeah.
Genuinely,
sure.
Apart from anything else, he's such a nice guy. He is also an amazingly talented rider. He keeps things simple. He doesn't try and overcomplicate things. Look at the ride on Big Evs today. The other thing about him, and you guys will know this more than anything else, when you're talking about top-class riders, it is the ones who make the fewest mistakes that go to the top, and that is Tom Marquand.
And he's had success in Australia. Don't they call him Aussie Tom?
Aussie Tom. During COVID times, he went out to Australia and he spent a lot of time out there. He was stuck in the rooms doing his isolation, and then he rode a lot for William Haggis, who sent horses raiding to Australia during that time. And he's gone and done the usual trip to Australia every winter since, and they love him there, but he's ours.
Remember this moment, Tom Marquand coming to the Breeders' Cup and finding Breeders' Cup glory in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. And our Three Chimneys cheers to the breeder, Robba Bloodstock, bred Big Evs in Ireland, a son of Blue Point out of the Oasis Stream mare, Hannah Lena, and trained by Mick Appleby, whom you also talked to earlier in the week. You wanted to get him to say something really confident about his chances, but in trainer speak, he's like, well, you're never confident. But look, with the year that Big Evs has had, they had every right to come in here and be one of the favorites for this race.
I think what I was trying to do in the interview was get him to say what he said before the horse won at Royal Ascot, in that he is the best horse he's ever trained, the best horse he's ever seen go on his gallops. Obviously, that was shaken when the horse got beaten in the Nunthorpe, but he came back and he won the Flying Childers, and his firm was his faith was reasserted in the horse. And he has never been in any doubt that the horse is good enough to win this race. I think what shook him a little bit coming here was the fact that he had to get away from the gates, the talented speed of the Americans going round the bend. Those little things niggle at you, but in the end, the quality of this horse has prevailed. And it's a huge success for Mick Appleby, who he's always been a talented trainer, but he's got better and better every season. The quality of his team's getting better. He was a former all-weather champion trainer, but now he's showing that he could do it on the international stage. Well done to him.
Does this help the credentials, the living the dream? I know it's hard, 2-year-old going up against older horses, but still.
It is hard to say, to be adamant that this, it's a positive. It's definitely not a negative. The other thing, of course, is that when Adam West came over, went to Keeneland, he got a bell for living the dream to train, and he lent that bell to Mick Appleby to train Big Evs.
It really is right out of the story of Seabiscuit. When you come to Sant Anita, the Seabiscuit statue is right there in the paddock. And if you ever watch the movie and watch his background story and the tremendous book written by Lauren Hillenbrand, they used a bell to practice for their match race on the East Coast against the big War Admiral. Big Evs taking a page out of the Seabiscuit playbook and getting prepared for this race and getting the win. And the other thing that should not be overlooked here, Rishi, Europe was first, second, and third.
It's our turf.
Wow.
Yeah.
Simon, are we going to be able to keep his ego on the set? Is there enough room?
I play both sides. I have 2 passports, so I'm Team Richie right now. When we go to the dirt race, I'm Team Todd.
I'm Team Todd.
And take a look at those payoffs. How about the early pick 5 today, ending to a very logical horse, and Big Evs returns $23,000. The pick 4, the early pick 4, $2,169. And look at the 10-cent superfecta. If you had confidence in the European-based horses, they had the top 3 spots, and that pays over $600. There is no doubt these are the best 2 days of betting in all of the sport of thoroughbred racing, and we're just getting started. The first championship race is complete. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint going to Big Evs. When you look towards his 3-year-old season today, later we're going to see the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We think in terms of the following year, horses on the Kentucky Derby Trail. What's for Big Evs as a 3-year-old next year?
Good question, a really good question, because the program for 5 furlong horses in Europe, particularly in Britain, it's not as
robust
as the 6 furlong and beyond. There's the
Palace House, Temple Stakes. Do they still exist?
They still exist. They still exist. The Sandy Lane, probably. But I'd imagine that his first big target will be the King's Stand Stakes at Royal Ascot.
Yes.
The 3-year-olds could run in that, so that's where I could see him going. Other than that, you know, you imagine races like the Nunthorpe, etc., and perhaps if things go well, he could be back at the Breeders' Cup again next year.
They can save those thoughts for another day, because right now they get to celebrate as our first championship here at the Breeders' Cup is decided. It's Big Evs taking the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Our next race, race number 6, will bring us to the main track, and it considered to be the biggest star of the day on this Future Stars Friday. It is Tamara. She was bred to be a champion, daughter of Bolt Doro out of the Henny Hughes mare Beholder, who was so dominant in her career and had such great links to the Breeders' Cup, having been a breeder.